Good afternoon. My name is Jack Keegan, and I'm an alcoholic. Why is it whiskey is different? I mean, there's a lot of things that affect our lives and destroy our lives, and we just get rid of them. I mean, I know a guy that won't have green peppers in his salad, makes him ill. That's it. We all know Wally don't have green peppers in his salad. End of story. It's out of his life. But whiskey causes us a lot more trouble than green peppers. It did me. Wrecked cars. Almost destroyed my family. Almost had me move out of the house. But I didn't stop. I stopped for I didn't know that stop meant stop. I thought stop meant pause. I paused quite a few times, as I mentioned last week. I paused for 6 months at a time, 8 months at a time, sometimes a weekend at a time, sometimes an hour. But I paused. But something happened. Something happened. It was in my head that I'm going to drink again, and I want that good feeling again. I want to feel good quick. And suddenly I'm sitting in some bar in Putnam County at lunchtime drinking a vodka martini. I never had a vodka martini. But I wanted to keep the smell off. And I'm drinking a vodka martini. And I had 2 or 3 of them, I don't know. But then I began to drink. And when I had that, I knew about the trouble that had caused me to stop for 6 months or 8 months. Or I knew the problems I got into. God. I mean, drinking was terror. I mean, waking up each morning, not knowing what the hell you ate the night before. The best I could do was be about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I could remember in that area. But what happened 6, 7 o'clock at night, forget about. I had people call me at 6, 7 o'clock. You know, when you're a lawyer in a town like White Plains, people call you. And they called me at home and said, you get this done, you get that. Yes, I'll take care of it. No memory whatsoever of what I did. I would see them on the street and I'd say, Jack, you take care of that? Fill me in, would you? Please fill me in. What? Well, I called you the other night. You said you were going to take care of it. Well, I mean, what was it about? The deed. Oh, yeah. Yes, that's done. I mean, that's what alcohol did to me. Terror. I mean, you don't know what it is to wake up at night. Did I start that suit? I got 90 days to do it. I'm going to be sued for malpractice? Just terror. I knew that. But I'm drinking a vodka martini because I want to feel good. Quick. I'm a drinker. See? I'm a drinker. The big book tells us that we have no defense against the first drink. And I believe that to be true. I didn't have a defense then, and I don't have a defense now. But what happened to me in this program, the journey that I've made in this program, is the journey that I would like to discuss with you. And it was a marvelous journey. And I'm still on it. It was a journey that started drunk, This step talks about a power. And when I was talking to my sponsor before I came over here, And I said, 25 plus years ago, I'm in a saloon at the Westchester County Airport, and I can't stop drinking. And I tell my brother that if I don't stop drinking, I'm going to die. And I end up drunk in some room in Chappaqua, New York, that I'd never been in before. And I talked to a guy by the name of Huff, who I never met before. And I haven't had a drink since that day. That's some power. That's what we're talking about here, power. The power to stop drinking, the power to restore us to sanity, the power to keep in front of me what one drink means, the power to let me know that if I begin to drink and I take that first drink, that drinking will end in a disaster, a catastrophe, every single time. It wasn't once in a while, every single time. Sometimes it took a week, sometimes it took a month, sometimes it took a year, but every single time when I began to drink, it ended in a disaster. I stopped drinking because a disaster happened in my life. And today we're going to discuss the solution to this problem, because there is a solution. The book tells me there is a solution. They have a whole chapter on it. It says there is a solution. Oddly enough, they don't call the chapter "There is an answer." Huh? They don't say that. Wouldn't that be nice? There is an answer. Well, I think they call it "There is a solution" for a reason. Because I remember when I took math examinations in high school and college, the teacher was really interested in my solution. I could get the wrong answer, but so long as the solution was correct, I got some credit for it. As a matter of fact, most of the credit came with the solution. The answer could be off a little bit. But I think we call it the solution because the answer is different for each one of us. We're all different. Each one of us is different. It's amazing. The book tells us we're a group that would ordinarily not mix. You see people come in here, truck drivers, cab drivers, lawyers. They're the most difficult ones. And they listen to the same thing we listen to. And they get sober. Priests, doctors, they get sober. Homeless people, they get sober from listening to exactly what we listen to. So there is no single answer, but there is a solution. And the solution is the power. A friend of mine one time was sitting on his porch with a sponsor, and he asked, the sponsor said, "What do you see out there?" And he said he saw the moon, and the moon reflecting on the water, and the reflection of the moon came directly to him. And he says, "That's funny, I see the same moon. And the reflection of that moon comes directly to me. And I'm 2 feet away from you. Because I'm in a different place than you are." So we're all different. But the solution remains the same. We are learning that we all have different DNAs now, aren't we? We're all different. We all have our own childhoods and religious. We're all born into some kind of a religion, probably. And this is not about religion. This is about a power. There are 3 facts about myself that I know as facts. The book calls them ideas, but they are facts to me. That I'm an alcoholic and I cannot manage my own life. That's a fact. That probably no human power could relieve my alcoholism. That's a fact. And that God could and would if he were sought. And that's a fact. But you have to seek him. You have to seek him. You have to seek this power. This power doesn't come down and like a bird and sit on your head and then disappear. I have this theory that if God showed up in the middle of this room and touched all of us, a week later, 6 guys would say, that never happened. Are you sure it never happened? Nah, it never happened. You sure? Yeah. Well, you're right. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe I was dreaming. A year later, nobody believed it. Because it's got to come from within, doesn't it? It's got to come from within. It's there. And this book tells us about that. The most powerful desire that we have to stop drinking doesn't work. Doesn't work. The book tells me that this situation about not being able to stop drinking has probably arrived in every case long before it is even suspected. I mean, I never thought I couldn't stop drinking. You know, if you ask me, can you stop drinking? Yeah, of course I can stop drinking. I don't want to stop drinking, but I could. If I wanted to, I could. I've done it. 2 years ago, I stopped for 6 months. 2 years ago. If I wanted to stop drinking, I could stop drinking. But there's no reason for me to stop drinking. My wife's not talking to me, and the kids don't really have too much to do with me. But there's no reason for me to stop drinking. So if I want to, I can. And this step talks about how I get that power to stop worrying about picking up a drink. The sanity that's spoken of in this step obviously is not the insanity of drinking, you know. If you were out with me drinking at any time, whether or not you were alcoholic, you'd be drunk. I made sure of that. You either drank the way I drank or you left. I don't want anything to do with you. If you fell behind, I would make sure that you caught up. And you might do some very funny things. You know, you might put a lampshade on your head or dance with a broom or something like that. And that probably is an insane thing to do, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about me going out to my car in the morning after not remembering virtually anything that happened the night before and looking for damage on the car, looking inside the car for anything that shouldn't be there, and then driving to work, and at lunchtime when someone says, "What do you have?" Well, I guess I have a whiskey sour just to, you know, kind of smooth out the rough edges and, you know, put it all together. I found Draft Guinness did that for me. I don't know if anyone has had that experience here. Draft Guinness you could be exploding. You could be coming apart in 10,000 pieces. And there's a saloon on Martine Avenue that has Draft Guinness. I don't know if it has it. I haven't been there in a while. But if you had a Draft Guinness, it was like glue. It all just everything joined together. All the parts fit and everything, all the pieces came together. And that was great. See? That's insanity. Because I'm off on the same merry-go-round again. And sooner or later, traffic accident. I was never arrested for drunken driving, but obviously through no fault of mine. Because, you know, someone asked me about my experience with drunken driving, and I told them about 100,000 miles. I just couldn't stay away from it. And when I got in here, this was going to be another failure of mine. My life was full of failures. I was a failure at Boy Scouts. I was a failure at the Legion Drum and Bugle Corps. I was virtually a failure in high school, but I had a lot of failures. And I was comfortable with failures, really. Inadequacy was very comfortable for me. I really felt, I can handle that. Success, I had problems with. Inadequacy, I was very comfortable with. And this AA was going to be another failure. Just be another failure. I was going to drink. It would take a while, but I would drink. Because people were drinking, around me. But I would drink. Because you really couldn't stop. You could stop or pause, but you couldn't stop. And then I came to the second step. And I realized that, I think this is the whole program, the second step. I think this is what makes it work. This is what gives us the tradition of, the group conscience. This is it. We are not in the Kiwanis Club. We are not in the Rotary Club. We are in a spiritual program. And the second step makes no bones about that. We've come to believe in a power. And what about the word believe? Do we understand what believe means? What do you believe in? Do you ever examine what you believe in? Do you really believe in all this that you hear? Do you believe in the honesty of someone? Do you believe in a life hereafter? What do you really believe? This step says we come to believe. You know what I believe in? I believe in that pilot that has me up in the air at 30,000 feet with 4 jumbo jet engines on them, and he's going to land me safely at some airport. I believe in that because I've experienced that. Every time I go up, he brings me down safe. I believe in that. I believe in that pilot. I can't drive that plane. That pilot does that. I believe in him. I believe he's trained. I never see him. I never look at what he's doing, but I believe in him. And I believe in his power because I've seen it work. Not God as I understood him, but God as I have experienced him. I see that power working in AA, and I've seen it working over 25 years in AA. I've seen people come in, and I've seen them almost as bad as me, and they get sober, and they live good lives. Why? What happens? What happens to people when they come in these rooms and meet strangers that they've never met before? I've seen that power work. That is God as I have experienced God working in AA. That's my experience, and I believe in that. I have come to believe in that. I really believe in that. I believe in that power like nothing else. It's incredible power. There's a chapter in our book called We Agnostics. And I've always found it odd that the chapter is We Agnostics. It's not to the agnostic, like it's to wives or to employers. It's we agnostics. I flipped through that, when I first read that. Like to wives, I flipped, I'm not a wife, I'm not an agnostic. To employers, I was an employer, but I didn't have many employees. But it's we agnostics. And somebody told me that if I thought that chapter was to prove to me that God exists, I was crazy. That chapter doesn't prove to me that God exists. That chapter is far more meaningful. I think it's we agnostics because we're all agnostics. I think there's a reason that he named that chapter that. I don't think there's any mistake in that book at all. It says in that book that the great reality is that deep down within us, we have discovered God. And it says there, in the last analysis, it is the only place where he can be found. And it was so with us. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. We found that God was part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we had for a friend. There are three things we had to do. We had to, some call this a second step inventory. We had to sweep away prejudice, we had to think honestly, and we had to search diligently within ourselves. And he comes to all who have honestly sought him. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to seek God. I think the chapter 2 of the agnostics is not to prove the existence of God. But the chapter wants you to do something very simple that will make it possible for God to do for you which you could not do for yourself. To get God to prove to you that there is a God. All you have to do is search for him. Deep within yourself. Someone once told me this agnostic's prayer. And the agnostic's prayer is, are you there? Are you there? Or are you a fake? Or are you a myth? I hope you're there. Because if you're not there, I'm in trouble. Please change me. Please change me. Please change me. And you keep saying that over and over to yourself. Are you there? Because it's deep down within ourselves that he exists. Please change me. And God will do for you that which you could not do for yourself. And he will take that worry out of picking up that first drink. The chapter ends with, when we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. But we have to draw near to him. You can't sit back and say, I have a difficult time with the spiritual part of this program. I don't think you can do that. Because there is no spiritual part to this program. This is a spiritual program. This is as close as we come to faith healing. And if you think it's any different, you're not reading the same book that I'm reading. And that book makes it very clear that this is as close as we come to faith healing. So if you draw yourself near to God, he will disclose himself to you, and he will do for you what you could not do for yourself. And he will prove to you that he exists. He will do that for you. You don't have to prove it. He will do that to you. And we see it many, many times in Alcoholics Anonymous. Over and over and over again. Those two chapters more about alcoholism and we agnostics, I think probably one of the two greatest pieces of prose I ever read. You realize getting alcoholism behind us is not having to worry about pick up a drink, not having to worry about what you said the night before, what you did the night before, who you did it to the night before, where you were the night before, who you were with the night before. I mean, I don't know if that bothered you people, but it bothered me, and it just terrorized me. And that's behind me. I don't worry about it. God. I am still to this day elated by the fact that I don't have to worry about getting drunk today. That may not seem like much to a lot of you, but it's a great deal to me. I just think that this is This is a marvelous step, and it's a step that should not be taken lightly. And to come to believe is not a 10-minute thing. Come to believe that there's a power greater than yours that can restore you to sanity. That's a process. That's a process. I hear people talking about using a group, and that doesn't bother me one bit. Use a group, use a sponsor, but I always tell people that use their sponsor. You got to realize every one of us here has got feet of clay. We all have feet of clay, and nobody's a power greater than you. Maybe the group is. I think I said last week that this group is greater than the sum of its parts. It really is something about this group that, I was in Denver in 1975. I attended my first international convention. And this fellow, Al Steckman, I spoke about last week, who was the author of the preamble. He got up on the stage and was leading the meeting. There were 22,000 people in this auditorium in Denver. And they had a huge 16-foot photograph of Dr. Bob and another 16-foot photograph of Bill Wilson. And in the middle was a huge 16-foot replica of the Big Book. And Steckman got up there and he said, and I asked him about this later, and he said it just came to him when he got up there. But anyway, this is what he said. He said, if you're a grateful alcoholic, I'm sure that Dr. Bob and Bill are looking down on this group, and they see this picture of 22,000 people in this room, but there's no soundtrack to the picture. So if you're grateful, put your head back and yell up your first name and say you're an alcoholic on a count of 3. He counted 3, and the electricity that was in that room was unbelievable. Just unbelievable. I have never been in such a situation in my life. I'll never forget it. Just incredible, the power that was in that room. A lot more power than 22,000 people, I can tell you that. And just everybody yelling up their name. So Mary Ann has some questions for me that, thank God she does this so I can depart from a script. Can I use AA's never-ending chain of healing as an AA higher power? Well, I think that's what we're talking about. I think that, the group that you see working. When I came here, I saw what you people had. And sometimes we don't realize what we have. We get kind of cocky about it, I got mine, But when I saw what you people had, when I heard your stories, when I heard the story of a guy that was a drunken, violent bum come up and he starts talking about God and serenity, I wanted to make that journey that he made. I wanted to get in there. I knew that you people, every one of you, have made a journey. And it was a beautiful journey that I could hear. I wanted part of it. And I suppose when you first come in, that's it. If you don't want what we have, go ahead, If you don't want to stop drinking, that's not our business. If you do want to stop drinking, that's our business. And if you want what we have, I think the power of the people that are making that journey is incredible. Incredible. Can the power of example be my higher power? I think we're all powers of example, the sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous. We are all, I think I said last week, there's one time when I was still in the Chappaqua group, a fella come up and he had 24 years sobriety. And as it turns out, I forgot that I have almost 26, but I looked at this guy. 24 years without a drink. Oh, what a life. Oh, what a life he had. I wanted that. I wanted that. He was a great powerful example to me. His program worked. You know, program worked. You know, one of the greatest things that people told me was slips are not part of the program. What? Slips are not part of the program. There's no step on slips. You know? There's no chapter on slips. There's no... I'll lead a topic meeting on anything but slips. But slips are not part of the program. That doesn't mean that people don't... And, you know, of course people slip. Some of my best friends slip. But, you know, it's... To dwell on it sometimes, you know. Like, I think some people come in and say, well, there must be a couple of slips in my life. So, they're not part of the program. Not part. Don't have to slip. And I don't think it does you any good. I hear people say, well, I had a slip and I'm much better now. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe you just kind of wash away all that was told to you when you pick up that drink. I think it's a very dangerous thing to do. All the things you've heard, you say, they're full of shit, and you drink. That's dangerous. I think it's very dangerous. So, not part of the program. And I'm not being critical of it. Don't misunderstand me. But I just sometimes like to... The new word they have now is pickup. Used to be a slip. Now it's a pickup. I don't know what the difference is, but maybe it's softer pickup. I don't know. So... Can I believe in something outside myself that, if I can believe in something outside myself, is that a good start? I would say certainly the group is a very good start for any power greater than your own. Because, you know, the group has the answers, don't they? That sponsor has the answers. And you can always go to other people and you can always shoot your mouth off at beginners meetings and ask questions and ask questions of your sponsor. And it's just, I don't know, the first day that I walked into a beginner's meeting, that would be the second AA meeting I went to for myself. It was a guy by the name of Jim Schofield who was gone on to another experience, and he was leading the beginners meeting in Chappaqua at the time. He was a great power of example to many, many people, including me. He looked at me, and I was brand new, and he'd never seen me before. And he looked at me and he said, "What's your name?" "Jack." "Have you had enough?" I'm not answering that. You know, nobody told me they were going to ask me that question. They didn't say anything to that. "Well, have you had enough?" Yes. I mean, I thought that was the right thing to say. I didn't want to say no because he'd yell at me, you know. So I said yes. And I must have thought about that for a long time. That answer, I blurted out. Yeah. Did I have enough? Did I have enough? I think that's something we all have to come to grips with when we come in here. Have I had enough? I have enough terror, enough pain, enough lying, enough just living. You know, I think the difference between the alcoholic and the normal guy that does, I'll refer to them as stupid things, all right? You all know what I mean. The alcoholic says, you know, inside, I'm better than that. I shouldn't act this way. I'm better than that. There's something wrong that I do this. And I shouldn't behave that way. I should behave differently. I should behave correctly. But I'm not. The other guy says, I made a mistake. Too bad. And it doesn't bother him. Alcoholic, it bothers. For some reason it bothers. I don't know why. We're not supposed to do that. Someone once described it as alcohol for the non-alcoholic does something for him. Alcohol for the alcoholic does something to him. I think that's right. It does something to us. That's wrong. And we know that we should be living a better life. We know that that's not the way things are supposed to be. And whether that's a goosey conscience or whatever you want to call it, that's what it turns out to be. I personally think you can't make it in AA unless you have a goosey conscience. If you don't have a goosey conscience, this is not the place for you. That's my feeling on it. What will I grow? Will I grow into a belief that I can be helped? Is that what came to believe means? And is that hope? I just think hanging around, that's one of the great things about AA. All you got to do is show up, right? You don't take any tests. Nobody asks you a lot of questions. You show up. You keep your mouth shut and you listen. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened to mankind, I think. Really. I mean, you don't have to be a genius. Just show up. You show up, you sit down, you have a cup of coffee, and you listen. And things happen to you. Your whole attitude changes. Your thinking changes. Your personality changes. It's amazing. You just have to show up. And then whether you like it or not, you start taking steps. And I think, that you can come to believe in this power just by showing up. It's a wonderful program. Just, and the more I see people show up, the better they get. Isn't that funny, huh? Guys I don't see for a week or two. We had a guy at our meeting last night. I hadn't seen him in a little while. He just celebrated 90 days. I heard his story. He's alcoholic. I know that. He never asked me, but I know it. And he said last night that he was bored. He was bored, huh? He thought that was funny. I'm bored. But there's a lot more to do in my life. Oh, is that right? Lack of terror. That's the definition of boredom. Lack of terror. I know how he can stop being bored. I know that. Simple, right? Little doers on the rocks. No more boredom. No more boredom. I explained to him that I thought if he was doing his fourth step, he wouldn't be bored. I never heard anybody say I was bored during my fourth step. Never. I heard him say, a lot of other things about their fourth step. I never heard anybody say during the fifth step I was bored. Never. That's sixth or seventh? Never. Eighth or ninth? Ninth? Never. They're never bored during the ninth step. Oh, boy. I didn't like the way he treated me. That's not boredom. And, when you get to that 12th step and you help a newcomer, you can never be bored. I mean, the questions they ask, right? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, but he's bored, He doesn't show up. But that's all we have to do is show up. I don't even care if you don't hear anything new, You just sit and listen, you feel better. You can walk out of an AA meeting and say, gee, I feel pretty good now. Why is that? I don't know. I think you meditate when you listen. And I think the more you show up, the less chance you're going to have of getting bored. I had a priest friend of mine tell me one time, he says, Keegan, he says, every time I see you at an AA meeting, it's like you're at your senior prom. I love AA meetings. I mean, that's the most interesting place in the world as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the lunatics that we have in those meetings, huh? If you ever, one of the things I find we don't have characters anymore, when I was a kid growing up, we had a kid named Beer Belly. His nickname was Beer Belly. Another kid named the Mop. Another kid named... They were all characters. But in my business, I don't have characters. No characters in my business. But in my AA group, are there characters? Genta is a character. Ben is a character. These are characters, these people. And it's so wonderful to be there and to share stories with them. And, oh, God, I just think it's the most wonderful place you can be. Yeah. I fell in love with AA, and it was very fortunate for me. And maybe because of that question that Jim Schofield asked me early on, have you had enough? Yeah, I had enough. And he told me what to do about it. My sponsor tells me that listening at meetings is a power greater than myself. Is that right? Well, I think it is. I think the listening at meetings, and I think, they talk about to skip ahead, they talk about a conscious contact with God, and I'll come to that, of course, in the 11th step, but very often, and I think this has happened to all of us. We've heard this thing said many, many times, whatever it is. Let's say it's the first drink will get you drunk. That's what you hear when you come in here. The first drink will get you drunk. And then suddenly you hear about 6 months and somebody says, the first drink will get you drunk. And you say, that's what they mean by that. That's what they mean by that. The first drink will get you drunk. That's what they mean. Well, you've heard it for 6 months, but you're not, the grid up here isn't ready to accept it yet, And then when the grid is ready to accept it, boom, it goes right in. And you can hear something for years. I believe that. You can hear something for years. I believe that. And then, boom, it happens. Now it makes sense to me. Why didn't it make sense? Because I wasn't ready for it. But just listening, that's very important. Is it true that we have to be patient with our own rate of recovery? And is that what restoration means? I think if somebody's showing up, regardless of where they are in their recovery, they're at exactly the right spot. When I first, I was sober about 6 years, I happened to mention at my meeting that I had never written a fourth step. Well, you thought I'd said I'd gone out and had 6 scotches. They fell on me like an old suit. Well, the reason for that was my first sponsor was a marvelous man, saved my life, but he wasn't into writing out the fourth step, and I never did it. So 6 years I'm in this program. And I sit down and I write the fourth step out because my group kind of insisted on it. And they would ask me, a week later, did you write your fourth step? You write your fourth step? Hey, what are you talking about? I'm sober 6 years. You shouldn't be talking to me that way. You write your fourth step? And I finally wrote it. And I sat down with my other sponsor. My first sponsor got drunk. That's another story. But so I sat down with my other sponsor and I did the fourth step with him. And you know what? I felt I was right where I was supposed to be. I felt I was right where I was supposed to be. I don't think there's any timetable to this program. I really don't. But you got to show up. When I say there's not a timetable, I don't mean that you can come once a month. You got to show up. I think you got to join a group, get a sponsor, and work in that group. I think that's the most important thing is to. I remember one time I was in Chappaqua for about 3 months. We didn't do 90 meetings in 90 days in those days. You just, after 3 months, you could speak. And after 3 months, they had a steering committee. Ooh, whatever that was. That was that was somebody that had met in an upper room. And the result of the steering committee, they read it out. I was elected to make coffee. Well, I want to tell you, I felt wonderful. I felt wonderful. And there was one of my buddies who was not elected to make coffee. So I went into the head of the steering committee, Jim Schofield. I said, can you put him on the coffee? Yeah. I felt like a politician. I felt like a politician in AA. I'm sober 3 months and I'm getting people jobs, But I mean, I really felt wonderful. I made coffee. And I'll never forget this one night I'm making coffee and this guy comes in and he looks like he needs my help, He don't look too good. And I'm making coffee. I'm I'm the coffee maker here. And I'm making coffee and I start talking to him and I'm very patronizing and so forth. And the next week he's up celebrating 17 years. I will never forget it, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind me using his name. His name is John Padone, and that's the kind of humility that John Padone has. You would never know how long he was sober. He told me a story. He was in Hawaii last year. John is sober 40 years, and he was at a meeting, And he never gives a sobriety date, but everyone's given a sobriety date, so he gives a sobriety date. And he says where he's from. And the guy says, "You know Bill Wilson?" He says, "Yeah, I met him. I met him. His son used to mow his lawn." "Yeah, I met him. Yeah." "You met Bill Wilson?" "Yeah, Bill Wilson." He didn't understand the excitement of it. He was invited to Alaska to speak, but he's not going. But that's the kind of a guy he is. But I wanted to help him. So yeah, anything you do in a group is important. And get in there, make coffee. That was important to me. And you have to be part of the group. So I don't think there's a schedule. Is it true that God speaks through the people in AA? Absolutely. I don't know any other way we hear God's message, and that's how I heard it. I heard a story one time that if this woman was talking down in Texas, and she said that she has this lovely dog, beautiful old dog, some kind of a retriever, I forget, not a Labrador retriever, but a retriever. And it's a great dog. She's had it for years, and he's a very happy dog, happy within his own skin, that kind of an animal. He's just a floppy, but he's terrified of thunder and lightning. And she has to hold him when the thunder and lightning comes, And when it thunders and lightning, she knows she has to go and grab him and hold him and pet him, and she wants to tell him it's going to be all right. The thunder is going to pass, the lightning will pass, the storm will pass, you're going to be all right. And she's holding him, and she says, "But I can't speak dog. I can't speak dog." And he doesn't understand, but I'm here, I'm around him, and I'm holding him. And he don't understand me. I can't speak dog. And she says, "I think God is like that. He's got us." And he says, whatever you're going through is going to pass. It's going to pass. You're going to get over it. And you're here with me, and I have you. But sometimes he can't speak. We don't understand him. And we have to hear it from other people. So yeah, I think he does speak through people in AA. He really does. I've heard, God answers prayer 4 ways, right? Yes, no, wait, and I have a better idea in mind. So I like the last one, but I don't like the waiting. I don't like the waiting so much. But yeah, it happens. My sponsor says there are no abstracts in AA. What you see is what you can have if you want it. Is that true? Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think that we are the luckiest people on the face of the earth to have this program in front of us. We have this program, this power that can make us comfortable with our lot in life. Do you know any place else you can go where you can be comfortable with your lot in life? I don't know of any place. I was never comfortable with my lot in life when I was out there. I'm comfortable now with my lot in life. And of course I know a lot of, I've been blessed a great deal in my life, but I don't think that has anything to do with it. I don't think what material things you have has anything to do with it. I think it comes from within. And this program has that energy, that power to do things we cannot do for ourselves. For ourselves, we cannot stop drinking. We cannot feel comfortable with our lot in life. We cannot get rid of those resentments. We cannot change our personality. We cannot do all those things. But this power can. And to be comfortable with your lot in life is happiness, huh? Happiness is not having what you want, but wanting what you have. And I think that's what this program enables me to do, through the power. I couldn't do it by myself. The power does it. The power changes me. Please change me. Please make me comfortable with my lot in life. Please make me not think of drinking. And the power's there. The power's within, deep within. You have to search for it. That last part of those three areas, God could and would if he were sought. And I think he must be sought. He's not going to come to somebody who doesn't seek him. Some people don't think they need him. Some people think they can do this program without him. And we've all seen those people, I don't go for the God thing. Join the Kiwanis and don't drink. Join the Rotary. But the God thing is here. It exists. It's in this room. You can't escape it. We're all sober because of the God thing. And our belief is, our belief in the God thing is what keeps us together. That's the solution. See, trouble is not our common bond. A lot of people have trouble, but it's not our common bond. You go to jail, there's a lot of people in trouble. A lot of troubles in jail. Not a common bond. The solution is our common bond. The God thing is our common bond. That's what we do together. That's how we communicate with each other. And next week I'm going to talk about anxieties and everything else, and we'll cure all that, control, If you think all you want to do is control your environment, the people around you, not so bad about that, right? Just want to control your family, want to control your children, want to control your mother, your father. That's all right. We'll talk about that next week. Thank you.